So for this demo, I just want to quickly overview some of the applications that you can use for your picture collage. Remember, you should have 50 photographs that you've taken of your one shape, and you're going to use a picture collage application to make it into a unified composition, thinking about the principle of design unity. So I have a number of examples here that you could use from. There's a lot of free options out there on the web. Um, there's also a lot of free phone applications. So you don't have to use one of these, but these are just some examples of ones that you could use. And I want to quickly demonstrate how some of them work. A lot of them are similar, kind of intuitive, but this is just to kind of give you some ideas about possibilities. So the first one I want to show is Be Funky. Now, Be Funky has a nice, a very nice grid option for your photo grid. If you go over here on the left, there are some other layouts that you can use. A lot of them they make you pay for, so there's not a lot of free options. But it's one of the ones that has this nice, easy square grid, and it's very customizable in its spacing, so I can kind of change the distance in between. I could also completely round off the edges if I wanted to. So it has some nice design elements. You could even change the background to fit your overall aesthetic. So there's some nice, very easy options, especially if you're thinking of using 9 photographs for your collage. Remember, you have to have a minimum of 8, but you could use more. All right, so let's say I'm going to use this 9 photo grid. I'm then going to go add some images. Now it's fairly easy to add images to here. I just click on my computer. And then I've saved all of them in this easy to find file called Circle Images. And all I have to do is add them is to click, and if I hold the shift key, I can click as many as I want and hit choose. And it's going to add it to my options over here on the left. And then the next step is just adding in my images. Now, as you're adding your images, remember you're thinking about that principle of design unity. And I want to think about my visual flow, and that I don't want the viewer's eye stuck somewhere. So I want to think about balancing where I place my colors in contrast. If I have a really bright poppy image, like a bright red in this one, I maybe don't want to put that right in the center. I want to keep the viewer's eye moving around the page. You also want to think about, as you're selecting colors, that you're balancing the colors that you use. So I have a lot of warm and cool colors in mine. I could think about trying to spread those around my piece. I could think about focusing in and making a collage that just has all different variations of warm. I could potentially do variations of brown. I could mix them all together so that the viewer's eye flows throughout the piece. Those are kind of some of the things that you're thinking about as you're trying to have something that's unified, but there's also enough variety that it makes your composition interesting. Now remember, you're doing 4 of these. You're at minimum, you could do more. They're just meant to give you different possibilities. They don't all have to be completely different. You're just trying out different things. So I could use this as one of my brainstorming compositions. And what you want to do once you kind of have it figured out and you're satisfied with what you have there, I'm going to go ahead and click save and save it to my computer. And then name it something. Maybe I'll name this Collage number 1. So that I know the difference. Or I could name it Collage Red or something that is going to make me remember which one this is. Make sure you have your highest quality JPEG image, and then I'm going to go ahead and hit save so that it's saved to my desktop. Now another easy example is this PhotoJet. It's fairly easy to use, also free. When you get on here, the key is, see this up here on the top left, you want to click on the Collage button, and that's going to take me to my collage options. And see right here, I'm going to choose Photo Grid. Now they have a lot more options, including different numbers of grids. If I look up at the top, I could even look at it from 8 plus, so I can see some examples there. They've got different grids or L shapes. They have a lot of different possibilities. And you know, when you're thinking about what you want to use, this can be something you play with your visual flow, where you put your bigger pieces, where you put your smaller pieces. I can also play around with the spacing and the roundness in this one as well. And this one's very easy to add photos to. I'll have to click on it and click Add Photo. And then once again, I can just select from my already organized folder, Circle Images. And I can use this to start to add it into the piece. It also kind of lets you zoom in or zoom out once you're in here. You could also potentially kind of edit the color, change the photo a little bit if you wanted to play around with that, contrast, those kinds of things. That way, you know, if you notice something's a lot brighter or a lot darker, that can help with the unity in your piece. You're thinking that they all have a similar overall contrast, lighting, tint, shade, all those kinds of things. And so once again, you know, you're thinking about where you're putting colors, how am I going to balance it, what it's going to look like with the visual flow. And in this example, you know, how you're going to fit it into the piece could also be something you're considering, because these don't quite fit exactly the same way, because most of my photos were cropped to a square, and these have a lot of different rectangles, so maybe I decide this isn't the best one for my piece, right? I can go back and look at ones that are maybe more oriented to that square feeling, and I could do this one that has gives me a lot more options to play with. So once you have it all figured out in this piece, I'm just going to kind of start to fill in some more. And this one's kind of fun too, if you really want to use a lot of your pieces. It's going to actually allow me to play with that idea of repetition a lot more. And how, you know, what color I place where, how I want to decide to orient those things. Actually become a lot more interesting once I have a much larger grid to work with. So I'm just going to fill in a few more so I can save this one. These two, if I want to click and drag and move them around, I can actually do it like that on here too. Just going to pull a few more in. And these could be really, this is why it's important too to make sure that you have them organized in some way, because once you start filling in, it's easy, it can be easy to get lost in a large folder if you haven't already kind of narrowed down which ones are your favorites. That way you have a kind of a starting point to think about what you're looking for. This one, instead of save, if you want to hit download, this is going to save it to my desktop. And maybe I'll put this one as grid 16 grid. Because I know this is kind of the difference between the first one and the second one. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and I've got it saved, but I have to click on it and kind of download it from there. It's got kind of a backwards way of saving things. All right. So, all right. So, like I said, those are just a couple of your options. If you have any questions about once you get in to start using them, feel free to email me or come to my office hours. You can, like I said, there's also a lot of options on your phone. A lot of these options are available through your phone as well. The key is, whichever one you use, that you really want to focus in on those ideas of unity and variety, having that visual flow throughout the piece, and creating an interesting design.